Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, welcome to American Black Journal.
Hey, great to be on. Thank you.
Yeah. So first, of course, congratulations for the outcome of the Derek Chauvin trial, which everyone has taken note of at this point. But I want to start the conversation in a slightly different place. This was a monumental achievement in the sort of relationship between police and their community, especially the relationship between police and African Americans. And a lot of people are describing it as a potential turning point, right? That maybe we go in a different direction. I want to start with you talking about what you think that direction could look like. Now that we've gotten a conviction for a police officer who murdered a citizen, and we've got a jury to say that. What's next? I mean, obviously, that's not the full repair that we need to this problem. What would you like to see us do from here?
First thing, let's pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. That is an immediate short-term thing we can do. We need the support of the Michigan congressional delegation, of the Minnesota congressional delegation, and it's stuck a little bit in the Senate. And so I asked my friends, Debbie and Gary, to do all they can to unstuck it and get it moving. I've made the same request to Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith here in Minnesota. I know that Cory Booker and Tim Scott are negotiating right now. They need to stay in the room till they come out with something good. That would be a substantial and important step forward. I'd love to see him pass it before George Floyd, the anniversary of George Floyd's death, which would be May 25th. And you know what? I was so overjoyed when President Biden said that in his address to the Congress. That's step one, job number one. Let me say too that Kim Worthy, Wayne County prosecutor, tried a historic case involving the death of Malice Green, and I think she got a conviction there. So it's important to get these convictions. I think the more you get convictions, the more police have to say, okay, maybe I be more careful in doing my job. Maybe people are going to hold me to account. I think it is important for prosecutors all over the United States to know that the public expects them to prosecute police misconduct and excessive force, just like they would any other misconduct and illegal behavior. Nobody's above the law, nobody's beneath the law. Accountability is the key. You can write all the policies you want, but if they're just words on a page, officers know that. They know what's enforced and what's just written there. And so there's got to be a cultural shift towards accountability for everyone. And one of the most happy groups of people will be the officers who join the force to do a good job. Imagine the nightmarish situation if you really are there to protect and serve. You really do want to help people, and you're next to somebody who's brutal and out of control. You try to stop them, and then you are the one in trouble. This is exactly what happened to Carrie O'Horn in the Buffalo Police Department. This heroic police officer intervened on excessive force. She didn't get a commendation. She got a demotion and punishment and was fired before her pension invested, and went through a long fight just to get it revested. Whenever Carol Horn is the poster child for what happens when you actually stand on the duty to intervene, you're not going to have officers intervening. We need to change things. And that's why I'm glad in our case, we had Chief Arredondo take the witness stand. And not only him, the longest serving Minneapolis police officer, a guy named Richard Zimmerman, took the stand. Lieutenant Zimmerman took the stand and said, we don't train that, that's wrong. And so we need officers to do that. We cracked that blue wall of silence that everybody talks about. And, quite honestly, I really believe officers who go to work every day to protect and serve really want us to hold those who are not there for that purpose to be held to account. And then, of course, I mentioned federal legislation. I mentioned what prosecutors can do. But really what I'm talking about is what community must demand. Community must say, we expect these crimes to be prosecuted. But then the Michigan State Legislature, Minnesota State Legislature, a lot to be done there. And I think we need to look at how a lot of these collective bargaining agreements are constructed between police departments and the police union. Because if you have an arbitration clause regarding misconduct, where the arbitrator always just puts the officer back over and above what the chief wants, that's a bad sign. The chief needs more control over discipline in the department, particularly as it relates to customers, consumers, citizens, residents, things like that. And, I will just add this one more thing. I'm extremely excited that Merrick Garland is now going back into municipalities with pattern and practice cases. This is extremely important I really do believe Donald Trump helped worsen police brutality cases, because when he got up there addressing a group of police in the Suffolk Police Department in New York and said, hey, don't worry about getting the suspects into the car safely. Don't worry about that. And just let them bang their head. He sent a message, anything goes. And all he was trying to do was, electioneer, and all he was doing is trying to pander. But he sent a very dangerous, ugly sign. And a lot of police leaders at the time said, that's wrong. But, to the average person, rank and file, they're like, hey, that's our guy. He lets us do what we want. So the Justice Department, DOJ, taking pattern and practice cases seriously, getting into that does the trick. We've seen cities like Newark and Camden actually go to 0 officer involved shootings after they've taken real serious action. So it is possible to make things better.
Yeah. So I'm also curious what you make of this part of the narrative that says we can't fix policing. The way it's constructed, the way it's imagined in this country is not safe for particularly people of color, and that we've got to do something completely different. Now, some people say it's defund the police. I think that's a problematic term, because that's not actually what they're.
It's really a hashtag.
Right.
That's what it is. It's not it's not a policy prescription.
Not a policy approach, but the idea of deconstructing and reconstructing the police. Do you think we have to go to that extreme?
Well, the answer is yes, but I would never adopt the idea, the language of defund the police, abolish the police. I wouldn't use that term. What I would say is we need to make the main thing the main thing. What's the main thing? Public safety is the main thing. That's the main thing. We're trying to keep people safe. How do we do that? Is having every single case, having responded with an armed person with a gun whose training is to use the gun or the nightstick, the only way to achieve public safety. I would say that in some cases it is. You get an armed shooter, you need that. You have somebody threatening violence, you might need that. But what about George Floyd, where he was accused of a fake 20? Do you need an armed response to essentially a low-level property offense where nobody has ever alleged that George Floyd even knew that the 20 was fake, right? So I mean, and then what about people who are in mental health crises? I mean, if you're an officer who wants to help, but this person just looks angry and maybe they look assaultive, but they haven't yet assaulted anyone, maybe they are in a autistic meltdown. What you need there is a professional who's going to come and ascertain the problem and de-escalate the problem. So I mean, how many situations do you need another skill set? And so what we've really got to do is say, we're going to keep public safety as the core point. And I think to a certain extent, American policing has let punitive measures and tough guy tactics be a surrogate for public safety. And I think that we need to get back to, let's keep the community safe. What do we need to do that? And really reemphasize that. And we will have armed people responding to crises. that is an inevitability. We will also do a lot more upstream things. We will do a lot more. We will reduce the number of unnecessary contacts. I mean, if you have a camera, why do you need to stop somebody? They could have let Dante Wright go,
Yes.
and then mailed him his ticket for late tax, right? And you know, police have learned years ago that high-speed chases are probably more dangerous. It's probably safer to let that person go than to chase them, you know, because then they get in accidents, kill civilians. So we need to really put public safety as the driver, not I'm a macho man and don't you talk back to me. And if you sass me, I'm gonna stick a gun in your face and call you a lot of foul names. I mean, if you just, what the police did to George Floyd in the very first is deemed to be by our existing law legal. But in the very beginning, it's like, put the gun up in his hands. He's got the handgun cocked sideways, get the F out of the car. I would submit to you that while the law protects the officer's behavior in that situation because he didn't see his hands, that sort of set the tone for the entire encounter.
Yeah.
You know,
escalation of the incident rather than the de-escalation of the incident.
Right, right.
Police are there to de-escalate, but often they don't.
Right. Step out of the car, sir. I need to talk to you. Just saying, sir. What if you just said, step out of the car, sir. I need to talk to you, as opposed to show me your effing hands. You know, I mean, look, is there an occasion where an officer has to draw a firearm on a person? Sure, there is. Nobody's saying there's not. I believe in officer safety and officer wellness. But if your first move is, show me your effing hands. I mean, you know, and honestly, a lot of people in our society don't believe African-Americans are routinely treated that way.
Right.
That's one of the cases. That's one of the reasons I'm glad this case was televised, so that the world could see this is routine in certain parts of our country, and in other parts of our country, it would be absolutely intolerable.
Yeah.
Now you go out to Grosse Pointe and you jam a Glock in somebody's face over a routine minor property offense. And I'm telling you, the whole community is going to be like, wait a minute, that guy's out of control. Right. You need to deal with that guy. Well, you do that in the heart of certain other places, low income, people of color. It's yes, we do. That's how we do. You know, and it's tolerated. So we just need to really, so your first question was, I mean, your original question is, do we need transformative change? Answer, yes, we do. And let's get out of the distraction of defund the police, abolish the police. Let's just get out of, that's not helpful language. But I will say one thing in favor of that language. It's provocative. and hopefully it will drive a conversation toward something truly constructive. But I think we've got to admit, it's essentially a hashtag, not a prescription for policy change.
Yeah. So I do want to talk a little about the Chauvin trial and what's next there. You've made a sentencing recommendation in Chauvin's case, and you've got more trials. You have more officers.
Yeah, we do. We have them, and they're all and they're tough, and we're gearing and we're working hard on it. I have to say to everybody listening to your show, the 3 defendants remaining are presumed innocent until proven guilty. I want to be very clear. They have a right to a fair trial, impartial jury, and I stand by that. As a prosecutor, I'm not a minister of punishment. I'm a minister of justice. So I stand on that. So that's coming up, and I'm not going to be able to speak that much about those 3. That's happening in August 23rd. When it happens, the world will know. But as it relates to Mr. Chauvin, yeah, in Minnesota law, the second degree unintentional murder, which is the top count he was convicted of, carries with it a guideline sentence of 150 months. That is the presumptive sentence for somebody who gets convicted of the generic second degree unintentional murder case.
Just over 10 years.
Yeah, you know, I think 150 months is about 12 months and change. Yeah. And then in Minnesota, you do 2/3, right?
Right.
So it works out to 100 months, which is about 8 years,
Yeah.
inside. And then you do the rest on supervised release. We are arguing, and we have argued, and we are arguing now that there are aggravating factors in this case. One is that Derek Chauvin was entrusted with the power, prestige, and esteem of the police department. He was a person of trust and authority and used it in a way to effect a murder. So that drives us in the direction of greater level of accountability and culpability. George Floyd was particularly vulnerable. He was in a prone position, hands behind his back. There has been testimony that George Floyd had fentanyl in his system. That, in my mind, doesn't make it worse. It makes it worse for Chauvin. It makes him more vulnerable and greater need of care and concern by people who have rendered him helpless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are two. Number three, it was performed in front of kids. You commit an act of violence in front of kids, that can mark them for a lifetime. Traumatic. Number four, I think I'm on, is that I think it was particularly cruel to stay on top of him as he yelled that he couldn't breathe 27 times, screamed for his mother, stayed on top of him 3-4 minutes after he didn't even have a pulse. And so those are some of the aggravating factors that we've identified. Also, committing a crime in a group I'm more dangerous if I commit a crime with a bunch of people than if I commit it by myself. So the fact that he had other people enlisted in the criminal enterprise and joint concerted action makes it more culpable as well. So those are 5 things we've identified, reasons why the judge, we believe, should depart upward in this particular case. And it's not revenge. I want to make sure everybody on your show knows that we're not seeking revenge. We don't believe in revenge. I don't think that the prosecution in any jurisdiction in the world, much less America or the United States or Minnesota, should seek revenge against a defendant after being convicted. What we want is a sentence that is tailored to the situation and to the egregiousness of what they did, so that we send a signal. You commit the generic crime, this is what you get. You get that same crime in a more aggravated way, you may be facing a little more circumstance.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to let you go soon, but I do want to give you a chance to talk about your roots here in Detroit. How important?
Oh yeah, I'm so very proud of being born in Detroit and grew up in Detroit. I went to Hampton Elementary. I went to University of Detroit High School on 7 Mile. Went to Wayne State. My dad went to Wayne State. And my family is a product of the Great Migration. My mother directly from Louisiana. My father, his parents were from Florida and Georgia, came up to Detroit, worked in the factories there. My grandfather worked at Boeing Aluminum, and I'm very proud to have those roots, and got so many good friends and family members in Detroit, which I admire so much. And my dear mother, who we lost last year to COVID, was a staple and a stalwart and a pillar at Wayne County Juvenile Court Services and Jesu Church. Yeah. And I made the best gumbo in Detroit. And so, I'm so proud of Detroit, so fond of my roots there. And I get back there 2-3 times a year, and I always have a great time.
Yeah. All right. Well, Keith Ellison, Attorney General of Minnesota, was really great to have you here on American Voice.
All right.
Yeah.